So you've clicked on this video either because you have anxiety or you know somebody who has. Well, you've come to the right place. I hope that this video will help you. So I'm going to share how I helped my client overcome anxiety in just 7 months. All the things that I say in this video, I still recommend that you go to a therapist or a counselor to help you, because the things that I'm going to mention in this video were obviously specific to my client, and your anxiety might be for different reasons and affect your life differently than hers did. So the first thing we did, as with any type of therapy or with anything that a client comes to me with, we explored it and we talked about how it began, when it began, what things triggered it, what led to it becoming the way it is now, how it's developed or changed over time, if it has at all, what it feels like, what impact it's had on her life, what effect it has on her daily life, her life at home, her life at school, her life with people and friends and work, all these other things. So we talk in general and we do a lot of exploring in the first session or two, because that's what you're supposed to do. And then we discuss the goals, what the client would like out of the therapy and what she would like to achieve and what she's come to therapy for. Is it specifically for the anxiety, or is it because of stuff surrounding the anxiety, or is it other things that have affected the anxiety? So essentially, what would she like to do about the anxiety? That's what we did first, and that's what we discussed in our first few sessions. So the second thing we did was speak about life before the anxiety started. So this was actually something that my supervisor recommended for me to do. She said, ask her what she was like before the anxiety started, ask her what life was like before, what she used to do, what she used to enjoy. So that's what we did. We spoke about all the things that she did before she got the anxiety, how she was as a person, what she used to do, and how that's compared to now. Does she still do those things? Why did she stop doing those things? Would she like to do the things that she used to do? Would she like to become that person, or does she want to become different? How does she want to be now? And then comparing the two and seeing the impact the anxiety has had on her life. So this was really helpful because it helped to bring the memory of who she was alive, rather than focusing on the anxiety-ridden person that was sitting in front of me. We spoke more about who she was and brought that person to life, and helped her to remember that actually you can still be that person if you want to be. That person hasn't disappeared, but anxiety has just covered her up, and we can still bring her back to life. So that was really, really helpful to see how she was before, and that was a really, really terrific piece of advice from my supervisor, to talk about how she was before the anxiety started. The third thing I did with my client was then to start setting small goals, to do things, little tasks. So because I was using a combination of person-centered therapy and CBT therapy is well known for having a lot of homework, a lot of tasks to do outside of the session. So for me, with her, with anxiety, you have to actively do stuff. It's no good just coming in and just talking about it. A lot of it has to be action-led, behavior-led, in order to accompany the emotional and cognitive changes that happen in the therapy room. And thank God my client was very open and willing to try anything to help with her anxiety. So she was very forthcoming and open to new ideas and trying different things. So between me and her, we talked about what goals she could achieve and the things that she could try. So I allowed her to pick a task or a few tasks that she wanted to do each week. So between the current session and the next session, she would pick a task to do, and then she would do that within the week before our following session. And then she would report back to me how she felt, if she was confident, what was going through her mind, the kind of anxious thoughts she was having, feelings in her body that were coming from the anxiety. And then each week, sometimes she would repeat a task until she felt better about it, or she felt more confident doing it. And sometimes she would add new tasks and leave other tasks, just so she could try more things and continue to push herself forward to try more and more things. So I always warned her that if you are doing a task and you start to feel really anxious, overly anxious, stop the task immediately. Don't force yourself to go through with it just because it's a task that you set for yourself. It's okay if you need to try again the following week. It's okay if you don't manage to do the task because you're still feeling a bit too anxious. But she was able to do her tasks quite consistently. There was obviously some times when she couldn't, just because of life happening and sickness and stuff like that, but most of the time she was able to keep doing her tasks, which was a big factor in lifting her mood as well, and improving her relationships with people in her life and her family and friends, and as well as her performance in school. The fourth thing that we did was work on her overthinking and intrusive thoughts, which were a big part of her anxiety. So I asked her, what are the kind of things that you think about in certain situations? And she'll tell me, this is what I'm thinking, and this is the kind of thoughts that cross my mind. And I'm like, okay. So with those thoughts, there was a lot of work to do, challenging the thoughts. Is that thought really true? Is that thought actually accurate? You think people think this about you? Have they said that to you? Have you seen evidence of that? Making sure that I was challenging her in an appropriate appropriate way to actually make her realize that, okay, these thoughts are not even yours sometimes, and these thoughts are not necessarily true, and you've made yourself believe that they're true to the point where it makes you so anxious. You believe that people are doing or saying certain things on purpose when they're not, but really it's in your head. And this is not to in any way minimize the anxiety or say that you're lying to yourself or you're not being true to yourself, but it's just to help the client to be more grounded in their thoughts and be more in control of their thoughts rather than living off assumptions. We've all experienced what it feels to assume something and then see it that it's not true, and then realize that we were upset or angry for no reason because we ran off an assumption. And with anxiety and overthinking and intrusive thoughts, a lot of it is assumptions which we have convinced ourselves to be true. This was a really big part of our work, and something that I helped her with, I'm going to quickly try and explain in short, was an analogy of an old radio. So I said to her, do you know the old fashioned radios, the ones that like you could turn the tuner to find a station? So I said, imagine like this radio is your thoughts, and the tuner allows you to tune into different thoughts, and all the different stations are different thoughts. So some of these thoughts are your parents' thoughts, siblings' thoughts, friends' thoughts, teachers, society, social media, and then there's yours, and then there's the intrusive thoughts. So I told her, you're in control of the tuner, and you get to choose which thoughts you listen to and which ones you choose to believe and which ones you choose to drown out and which ones you choose to make louder. So I said to her, turn down the intrusive thoughts. Every time that an intrusive station comes on, try and tune it out and instead tune into your own thoughts. Don't allow that intrusive station to keep playing. You are in control of it. And that was the analogy that she's been using for the past few months, and she said that it's really, really helped her. Of course, like I said, this is specific to her, so it might not be helpful for you, but this was something that definitely did help her. And another technique that I used for her in terms of her overthinking and her anxious thoughts, like I said, this was a really, really big thing, was what would the new and improved you do? But instead of saying you, I put her name, which obviously I'm not going to say. So if you're watching this, maybe your name is Sarah. What would the new and improved Sarah do? And ask yourself that. So I said to her, ask yourself, what would the new and improved me do in a situation where you're normally anxious? So if you find yourself that you're really, really anxious in a new setting, or when you go to the supermarket, or when you get on the bus or public transport, say to yourself, what would the new and improved me do? What would the new, improved, confident, non-anxious me, what would that version of me do in the situation? What would she be thinking, or what would he be feeling, or what would be on his mind? What would he love to do? What would he not do? And do those things or not do those things, so that you can embody the version of you that you want to be, the non-anxious version of you. So those were the two main things that I did. If you'd like me to do another video explaining other techniques that I used, then I could definitely do that. So those are the main things that I did with her in terms of especially helping her with her thoughts. The other things that we did a little bit of was a thought diary, but that didn't really work for her because a thought diary is more so to help you figure out what makes you anxious and what leads to your anxiety. But with her, she already knew what set off and triggered her anxiety, so she didn't really need that. The anxiety thought diary usually helps you to track when you're anxious and what leads to the anxiety and what you feel in those situations. So this didn't really work for her, but it might work for someone who feels anxious but doesn't know why. The other thing that my supervisor suggested for me to do with her was to find an object that she associates with peace and calmness, something that relaxes her, and to use that and to keep it with her whenever she could. But of course, this didn't really help for her either. So maybe for some people, this might be like a sentimental picture, a sentimental item, a stress ball, a blanket, or something that's really significant, maybe a ring or a piece of jewelry that's significant to you and reminds you of something positive and happy. Of course, this is a lot harder because sometimes some objects might be too big to carry with you 24/7. But this didn't really work for my client either, but it might work for some of you who are able to kind of have access to little things that you can keep with you 24/7 that help you to stay calm and remind you of a happier time, happy memories, or that mean a lot to you, or are from a family member that meant a lot to you. And another thing I found with a few of my clients actually who have anxiety was using earphones helping them a lot. So maybe using earphones might help you. Just before we go, you might have seen me wearing this hoodie that says Cyberform on it. I'm part of a team of people that are currently developing a mental health app for young people, and we need a bunch of volunteers. I'm volunteering as well. We're looking for volunteers, people who can do research, people who are counselors, therapists, people who are good with technology, IT, developing, graphic design, anything. I'm going to put a list of all the areas of expertise that we need, and we meet once every 2 weeks online. So the plan is that the app will be launched by January 2024. So if you are able to volunteer a little bit of your time and knowledge and expertise, or if you know somebody who can and who's willing to, and they can put it on their portfolio or their resume that they were part of this mental health app and the launch of it, then that's something that, you know, you can really brag about. So thank you very much for tuning into this video. I hope that this will help your anxiety. But like I said, I do recommend that you see a therapist or a counselor who can help you and give you more tailored care. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.